Border Patrol leadership is asking for agents to voluntarily deploy to the northern border, overwhelmed at what's called the Swanton sector, which is Vermont, New Hampshire, New York, which has seen an 846% increase in illegal crossings since October. So you got to ask yourself, Harry, our director of policy, Harry Hutchinson's with us. Harry, you don't normally hear about the northern border, very rarely. What's going on here? What are we figuring out?
Well, I think many migrants from Guatemala, Romania, Mexico, and elsewhere, including Ecuador, they are finding it easier to cross from the north than the south. In other words, there are so many illegals coming up from the south, it may now be easier to enter the United States from the north. That's number one. Number two, open borders is a central plank of the World Economic Forum's agenda. And this goes back to a post-war consensus preaching openness, tolerance, and inclusion. And now the Biden administration has essentially adopted the World Economic Forum's approach to border security. And so once again, the Biden administration is failing the American people. So the Biden administration, having lost control of the southern border, is now losing control over the northern border. And I would argue Border Patrol agents are typically less vigilant with respect to the northern border. And in many respects, it is easier to cross. But these particular migrants, they are incentivized to cross, even though the temperatures in Vermont and Montreal and Canada are below 4 degrees in Celsius.
Yeah. What's interesting here is it says across the northern border, illegal crossings from Canada into the U.S. have increased from 16,000 to 42,000. This is according to NBC News. The Customs and Border Patrol website, there are more than 1,200 encounters along the border over the past 4 months, which does not sound like a lot, but it's increasing. And it's what's happened in the South is not that we've had great enforcement. It's just there's so many people that the unlawful entrants can't get in, even in the illegal line they can't get in.
Yeah, so I mean they have
That's really what it is.
They have to wait to cross illegally from the south. There's no wait if you can get to Canada. And my presumption is the individuals from Romania, Ecuador, Guatemala, and Mexico, they are flying to Canada and then crossing into the United States illegally.
It talks about the amount of money, because that's not cheap.
No.
So they're paying the cartels to run travel agency programs into Canada to then make it easier cross into the United States because of the line in Mexico, not because the border, once you get to that point, but because you have to wait your turn.
I mean, think about that. I mean, the cost of the transport for these individuals.
We think about like these, everybody's coming across with no money, no resources.
Obviously not.
And no, I mean, there are also those who flee they may have been wiping out all of the money, and also there's indentured. I mean, there's a lot of issues at play here. But the fact is, if you're getting that sophisticated, and I always am interested, what is with the volunteer thing with our government?
Yeah, what do you think that
don't
is?
We control these officials?
Don't we tell them you got to be deployed there?
Well, I don't know what the rules and regulations are, but I certainly have done a little work for the federal government, and some workers are indeed unionized, and that may have some something to say about the Border Patrol basically asking people if they're willing to relocate.
Too cold.
I would argue that Border Patrol agents, if they really want to stem the tide with respect to our northern border, they probably should begin to identify as Ukrainian soldiers, and then the Biden administration will provide additional resources to protect them.